The Fuzhou Shipyard was a warship construction base established by the Qing Dynasty in 1866 and quickly became the largest shipyard in the Far East, building a total of 40 warships, gunboats, and cruisers, garnering significant attention. However, despite its importance, the shipyard gradually lost its construction capabilities after the First Sino-Japanese War, and for nearly half a century after 1907, no warships were built. What caused this sudden change and why did it fail to recover for such a long time? The Fuzhou Shipyard itself was an enterprise, and as such, faced financial challenges from the beginning. At its inception, it received 470,000 taels of silver from the Ministry of Works to complete infrastructure construction, recruit and train workers. Despite this, the shipyard did not generate economic returns and relied on a monthly allocation of 50,000 taels of silver from the Min Customs for its upkeep. In 1973, an additional 20,000 taels were allocated from the tea tax to ease the economic pressure. Although this seemed like a considerable sum, it was barely enough for the large shipyard to sustain its technical personnel, workers, and the costs of equipment and daily expenses, requiring a significant amount of funds. More importantly, the Qing government viewed the shipyard merely as an arms factory, essentially funding the shipyard as a shipbuilding facility. Zhuo Zongtong and others recognized this flaw and proposed the development of commercial ships for economic growth after acquiring certain shipbuilding capabilities, but their proposal was prohibited by the ministry. This state-sponsored facility approach restricted the shipyard's further development, economically controlled by the Qing government and unable to integrate into the commercial sphere. If the government's funding ceased, the entire shipyard would face an economic crisis. Additionally, as it focused solely on building warships, transitioning from military to civilian use was not something that could be achieved overnight. This inherent deficiency eventually became one of the main reasons for the shipyard's decline, especially after the First Sino-Japanese War. Faced with substantial reparations, the Qing dynasty had to reduce the shipyard's budget, leading to a gradual loss of personnel, a lack of funds for ship construction, and insufficient maintenance of equipment, resulting in almost half a century passing without building a decent warship. After the fall of the Qing dynasty, the economic situation of the entire country became even more severe. Before that, the relevant organs of the Qing government had managed to maintain the shipyard with great effort. After 1911, the Fuzhou Shipyard was placed under the jurisdiction of the Beiyang government's Navy Department, with a monthly budget of only 30,000 yuan. At that time, 1 yuan was worth less than 1 tael of silver, only enough for minor repairs and maintenance work. So, did the 40 warships built by the shipyard and its daily maintenance business generate any profits at all? Of course, they did, but they were meager. For example, the Huanyangking troop transport ship, completed in 1869, cost 163,000 taels, part of which was used to pay workers' salaries and other expenses, with a small profit. However, for the massive shipyard, this meager income was insufficient to cover even a month's expenses. By the 1880s, the shipyard was able to build ironclad cruisers, but the limited production quantity did not reduce costs through mass production, thus providing minimal profit. Taking the representative Pingyuan as an example, completed in 1888 with a displacement of 2,150 tons and a cost of 524,000 taels, it was the only achievement of the shipyard that year and the most expensive warship in years, but still insufficient to support the shipyard's economic expenses independently. During the Beiyang government and wartime, the Fuzhou Shipyard, renamed the Naval Shipyard, faced even greater challenges, with frequent changes in leadership, corruption, and a severe shortage of technical personnel and outdated shipbuilding technology. To resume warship production, it would have been necessary to recruit talent and acquire new equipment, leading to an economic impasse. The design and construction of ships and warships are not easy tasks and require specialized knowledge. In the Fuzhou Shipyard, shipbuilding talents could generally be classified into two categories: design personnel and skilled workers. Zhuo Zongtong addressed the talent issue at the beginning of the shipyard's establishment, adopting a route of hiring and self-training. French and Italian personnel were employed in key positions, while the shipbuilding school was established to teach navigation and shipbuilding technology, with graduates going on to work at the shipyard. This approach was in line with the actual situation at the time and achieved success in the mid-1870s, with the shipyard using its own graduates to oversee work, occasionally hiring foreigners to address technical issues. Both design personnel and skilled workers were generally self-sufficient. In the 1880s, the shipyard independently designed and built a 2,400 horsepower compound engine, which was considered advanced at the time, far surpassing the previous 150 horsepower single engine. However, the good times did not last. In the late 1870s, the Min Customs began to frequently default on funds, and salary arrears became commonplace. Although the operation of the school was challenging, it continued to bear the living and medical expenses of the students, providing 4 taels of silver to each student monthly for their families. In comparison, the economic downturn meant that the skilled workers had to endure even more hardship. After several years of living off its reserves following the First Sino-Japanese War, the shipyard was unable to continue building ships, and workers dispersed. Even if ship construction were to be restarted, it would be difficult to quickly gather enough skilled workers, another reason for the loss of shipbuilding capabilities. Ship construction was just one part of a massive manufacturing industry, involving a vast array of related industries, with steel smelting and transportation being the most crucial. Building warships required a large amount of steel, with different specifications and purposes. For example, armored steel needed surface hardening treatment to enhance its protective capabilities, while the steel used for keels had specific length and strength requirements. Like the shipyard's predicament, these peripheral industries also teetered on the edge of collapse, experiencing varying degrees of crises, with previously cooperative production relationships breaking down and evolving into separate survival struggles. For example, in the 1930s, the Jiangnan shipyard in Shanghai began to replicate light cruisers, but most of the components had to be purchased from abroad, causing delays in progress and resulting in finished products that were only at the level of ships from the First World War. Just when the Fuzhou Shipyard was steadily progressing, the 1884 Battle of Fuzhou saw a devastating blow to the Fujian Navy, after which the warships manufactured by the shipyard transitioned from earlier wooden warships and ironclad wooden ships to more heavily armored steel ships, indicating a resurgence in naval development. 10 years later, the First Sino-Japanese War erupted, resulting in the complete destruction of the Beiyang fleet. Although the importance of the Navy was recognized, 2 defeats in battle, along with war reparations, left the Qing Dynasty unable to rebuild the Navy, effectively giving up. The subsequent Beiyang government also paid little attention to the Navy, focusing on the development of the army. This approach persisted until the period of resistance against Japan, where the tragic sinking of ships at Jiangyin mainly involved old and small to medium-sized vessels. Only the Jiangnan shipyard in Shanghai replicated battleships such as the Ninghai and Pinghai over several decades. As one of the first major heavy industries in modern history, the Fuzhou Shipyard's historical value is immeasurable. The students who graduated from its school and the warships launched from its shipyard had a profound impact on future historical developments. However, it was born in the turbulent late Qing Dynasty and faced significant external interference, ultimately unable to save the collapsing structure.